Hi, I'm Justin Banner of Vend Craft. I'm here to show you how to make your vending machine go from this to this. From this to this. First step is disassembly. And as you can see, some of these have actually had Lexan replacements where there's no little divots. So you can just usually just pull them straight up. Now, what's great about these machines is that they're really simple. So to get this cage out, it's 4 screws here at the bottom. Most of the time they're Phillips head, but it can vary machine by machine, especially whoever happened to do it last. But usually they're Phillips heads. And they're not very long either. But again, that kind of varies. And they will be tight because, of course, they've been sitting around for a while. This one's got a little bit of spider web in it, so it's a good thing we're going to break it down and clean it so you can get rid of stuff like that. Rotate this around and grab this last one. Now, if it starts to fight you a lot, be careful because it could start to strip out the screw head. Not necessarily the threads, but the head itself. And then you kind of have to go into some desperate measures to remove it. But these came out a little bit tight. They do have some corrosion on them, which I'll show you here. A little bit of paint too. But as you see, there's a little bit of rust, corrosion, just a little crud like that, and that's what makes it so tight. And usually I try to do my best to clean this off, and I still will, but really I need a sandblast cabinet for that, and right now I don't have it. But we've got all the screws out, so now we can actually separate the little base here. And this guy's actually had a little bit of disassembly before. Oh, interesting. I didn't do this. So that's another thing you may find with your machine. You may find somebody has already tried disassembling it and not have much luck. It also looks like this machine has been chrome at one point. You can see this little polished metal here. That can make painting a little difficult, but it shouldn't be too bad. If I use a rough enough surface, it should adhere. But as you can see, a little bit of that waviness in the paint, that's what happens when it doesn't have good adhesion. Or if you put on too much paint and it just runs. That's what you want to avoid. Luckily I have a high enough grit sandpaper that shouldn't be a deal breaker for me. It's just a little unfortunate. And again, even though this machine is clean, it still has some corrosion in it. And somebody painted it with it together. So that's something you should try not to do because it causes this type of issue. So again, as you see, this machine was all chrome at one point, and then they added paint on it later in its life, and it was painted with it fully assembled. So this isn't the way you should do a restoration job. You should take this apart and spray every individual piece because you typically end up making it a mess for the next guy. And as you can see on some of this chrome here, you see where they painted it. You probably wouldn't have seen it at first because it will have been reflecting off of this base, but there is paint. So whoever did this did a really shoddy job, and that's unfortunate because other than that, it's a pretty good machine. Well, no matter, we can keep pressing on. In the meantime, we go over to the sink and clean it off. So that's all it takes is just regular soap and water. You don't need to do anything crazy with it unless you're trying to strip the paint off, which will show in a different video. So you can see this one's not too bad. It's not got a lot of chip marks, but it does have some imperfections. So this will take a good light sanding, and then we'll repaint it. Now, if you don't do this yourself, you hire somebody like me, this is something you want to make sure that they do. They should always clean the machine. Even you should clean the machine. You may have known where it came from. It may have been yours the whole time, but if you're sitting here starting to redo a machine, clean it. It just makes for a better look and gives your customers peace of mind. Yes, even the side panels need to be clean. Anything that touches the gumball or candy should be clean. And again, it's just something to give your customers that peace of mind that you went that extra step to ensure that their customers aren't going to come back and sue them for food poisoning. And this was actually once a clear piece of Lexan. I can tell because of the thin spots and looking at the sides of it. So they took this clear piece of Lexan and painted the back of it. It's not a bad idea, but really if you're going to do that, you should make sure you have enough paint on it, or you can get clear spots like this. And you should back it up with a second coat, because it could help with some of the scratches. Like, see, there's a scratch right there. This one has some stickers on it. One looks like somebody used a little clear cellophane tape here, but of course a 25-cent piece. In another video I'll show you how to get rid of this, because it's very easy. But since I don't have that much time on this particular project, I'll have to show you later. The cellophane tape though, I'll take off. That's easy to clean off. This is so exciting. Just peeling off the tape. And you see, it is leaving a little bit, it has left a little bit of a sticky residue, but it's not bad. Should be able to just use the soap and water, but it looks like I may have to. Yeah, it's coming off. It's kind of the good thing about cellophane tape. It's not so bad to remove its sticky residue, but if you get a sticker like that 25-cent piece, it can be much harder. So anything with like a paper backing or a printed decal can be very difficult to remove. And again, I'll show you in another video how to do that. Again, more clear cellophane tape. I don't know if it's showing up or not, but it's there. And I'm not saying you can't use cellophane tape in your gumball machines. I just wouldn't recommend it. Again, I know I'm boring you with excitement here. Now, I will say, you've seen how clear those other pieces of Lexan are. Here's the original piece. And you can kind of see it's definitely got some age on it. It's starting to yellow because it's been in the sun and hit with UV rays. For right now, there's not much I can do with that. It would take a different type of cleaning process, kind of similar to what you do for headlights. You would actually sand this down a little bit with a light scuff, clean it, and then try and reseal it as best you can. Because that's what's actually turning yellow. It's not the plastic. It's actually, there's a little bit of a coating inside of here. So unfortunately, I'm just going to keep this, and maybe on the next machine we'll try and take care of that. So again, you can see where they kept the machine together and decided to repaint it with it together. Again, you should not do that, and this is why. But it flakes right off. Another thing I would like to do, and probably will again in a future video, is actually clean this out and re-oil the mechanism. You don't use something like motor oil or any kind of automotive oil. You would actually use something like linseed oil, but these parts still need lubrication. If you've never seen how the quarter mechanism works, that's what this does here. So when you turn it, that's why it stops. It actually holds it in place right here. So when you install the quarter, when it drops in this little mechanism here, and you turn it, it rides against that little spring metal and would allow it to turn over. But because there's no quarter in here, it hits that little U-channel and stops. I was kind of hoping that maybe using this rough scour pad here would help get this paint off this chrome, but it doesn't look like it. It's going to require me to sand it if I really want to do something with it. And with time not really being on my side here, I may not just worry with it. That's kind of the good thing about chrome, is that it's going inside a red machine, so it won't reflect it. Or the reflection will kind of cover up that this is here. That's probably why they assumed that it wasn't there. But again, if you're going to paint your machine, take it apart and do it properly. Don't do stuff like this. This is just bad sport. It really makes you. It doesn't give you a good look. That's the very least. And it aggravates guys like me because I have to go back behind you and do this. It's actually part of what will force me to have to charge more, because now I have to go in and actually sand this down. I'm just taking care of some sticky stuff here. But I would have to go back and sand this down to get rid of that paint. So at the end of the day, all you're doing is just making it more expensive for the guy after you. So this turned what would be a $20 service charge into a $30 or $40 service charge, because I would have to go back and remove this paint. I don't want my customers going back and seeing this and saying, hey, this looks like crap. So why would you do it? Why would you demean yourself, not take the machine apart and paint it properly? Sure, you're saving yourself a little bit of time, but in the short term, But look what you're doing to yourself in the long term. And again, if somebody brought me this machine, I would have to charge to remove that. Or I would have to give the customer a choice. Do you want to be charged more to remove this and have a perfect looking machine? Or have something that makes your customers go, huh, if he didn't take the time to fix this, what else is wrong with it? And as you can see, this machine has been not only outdoors, but again, sprayed completely together. You shouldn't do this because it hides this rust. Again, look at all that rust. Now I can sand that down and I should be able to fix that, but it's going to lose some of that detail. Like there's an oak logo right here. If I sand it down, that's going to be gone. And there's not much I can do about that. Even if this wasn't painted over, if it had the rust, I would more than likely still have to sand this down because, I mean, look how bad that is. And that's part of the risk of having an outdoor machine with bare metal. So if you've got a machine with a bare metal hopper, you may want to consider replacing with a stainless steel piece or a plastic piece, something different than this. Because as you can see, it just gathers rust. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's a bare piece of metal. Or you can paint it, but you have to paint it right. Unlike this one. Alright, I'm done cleaning, but this is one thing I also want to show. Unfortunately, it's another consequence of not doing paint right. Your paint, just like the metal, will stretch and contract and heat. It's like any material. It's going to do that in heat and cold. Because this was outdoors, it was even worse. So unfortunately, where he looked like, or he or she or whoever had done this, the repaint, again, they did not take care to remove the original paint, so it's flaking here, as you can see. But also, it's actually starting to crack the paint a little bit. And it looks like all they did was just try and respray it. Now, if you want to touch up something like this, like from little scratches and things like that, that's not a bad thing to do. But just keep in mind that this is what's going to happen. It's just going to crack off and end up looking very ugly. Alright, so I've cleaned it all off. Now I just got to dry it off and start sanding. So now everything's washed. It's just all about drying it now. And again, nothing too drastic here. Just wipe it down and get most of the water off, and it'll eventually air dry as you're going through the rest of them. Okay, here's another issue with the whole painting while it's together and not cleaning it. I just had to look. I thought this was all debris in here. It is, but it's from where the previous guy decided, oh, I'm just going to paint over the debris that's in here. So more than likely that's pieces of candy or whoever was left in this machine when he painted it. I just have to shake my head at that. Guys, if you're going to repaint your machine, clean it. To me, this is astounding, but I know there are people that just go, meh, and do something like this. Obviously they have. This is pretty bad. Now this isn't pretty bad, this is ugly bad. Luckily when I go through and sand it, it should remove most of that, but man, I mean that's a new high of laziness there. And it may have not necessarily been candy debris. It could have been rust, it could have been dirt, it could have been anything. It's just stuff you shouldn't have to deal with when you're going through and repainting something. And if you're wondering, yes, there will be a final clean before I call it done. Okay, everything I really need dry is dry, so now it's on the sanding. Every so often what I'll do is if I see a weird divot spot like this, I'll run my finger over it. If I feel a high spot like right there, I take and sand more until I feel that it's gone. And yes, as you can see, this is not a clean process. And another thing to keep in mind is another benefit is that these edges will be a little bit less sharp, which is actually nice. Again, it makes for a better looking, better feeling machine on top of that. And you're curious if you see me kind of hold it at the light and my head's kind of at a tilt. I'm looking for all the shiny spots. Any shiny spot is a place where paint won't really adhere well. If your machine does happen to have chrome or polish on it, this is something you need to do, because if you don't, again, the paint won't adhere. Now go to the body. Now I've used this block before and it works pretty well, but you can see it kind of peels off if you start hitting some of the rougher edges. it'll actually start peeling some of this rougher surface off. It's kind of why I hesitate to use this, and I go to the sandpaper. And the sandpaper conforms a little bit better, so I'll be able to get into these little crevices easier than this will. But as you can see, for a big surface like that, this makes quick work. Now I'm sure you can, I hope you can see it in the camera. You can kind of see where there's high spots and low spots. These are low spot, yeah, more low spot here. You saw me kind of beat on the block a little bit because this gets filled with paint dust. You want to clean it off, otherwise you just start not doing anything. I'm gonna do myself a favor. Bought this today just for what I'm about to do. This actually fits in the hand a lot nicer. Yeah, feels way better. Nobody said this wasn't easy work. Your arm will get a little tired out after doing this, but being able to use a tool like this kind of makes it easier. So here I am back the next day, or actually 48 hours later I should say, and I'm assembling a machine. So I'm going through cleaning it, making sure there's no big mistakes, but considering what the shape the machine was in before I got it, it's way better than what it was. The one good thing I will say though is that the part that was chromed is not bad. I was really expecting that paint not to take, but it looks really good. I can kind of see where some of the paint isn't going to stick all that well, but again, it's because it's chrome. There's not much you can do to paint over chrome and have it last. It's just, you're pretty much asking for the impossible. You have to actually take the chrome away in order to do that, and that's a job that's not going to be done by sanding. Sandblaster maybe, but there's a deep plating process that you should go through to get rid of chrome so that you can repaint something. If you've never put the machine back together before, or you've got one that's all apart and you're kind of like, how does this go? Here's how it works. Now, this is actually missing a piece. I just realized that. Give me just a second. Okay, so this machine didn't come with a riser, so I had to go source one, but just like everything else, I've cleaned it and I'm drying it off now. Now what this does is actually prevent more than one gumball dropping out. So you put that in first, just like that. Then you grab your little turnstile. This is where the gumballs actually fit in and drop one by one. You add your little top plate here. And 2 screws hold it in. Of course, being a mechanic, I'm used to doing things a little at a time. This is all plastic. You don't need a reef on this thing. You just need it tight enough to hold in. So what I did is I have a light hold on the screwdriver, and if I can't feel the screw move anymore, I stop. Same thing again. A light hold. And that's the other thing you gotta be careful of, because if you don't hold it just enough, it will strip out. This one didn't, it just popped up, but that's what causes the stripping. There is one way that this goes, and these little prongs have to go up on this particular machine. Those prongs line up with these little spaces made from these extrusions. And yes, it can be a bit of a pain to line all this up at once. But again, the way I do it is I go in halves with each corner, just like so. And again, this is a habit from me being a mechanic, because that's what I did when I was 16. And again, don't reef on any of this. This is just regular old cast metal. It's not going to hold all that much anyway. And then install the other 2 screws. So next are these little panels, and they go through in these little channels. Mine are still a tiny bit wet because I cleaned them, but yeah, I did that because it's been about 48 hours. I'm actually going to use this original piece as the front piece because it should be the most secure, because that's the one where most people are going to look through anyway. But this original one has these little risers here, and what these do is just prevent the glass from easily moving up and down. So when you pull it apart, you'll feel that you have to bend it just slightly to pull it out. So as you can see, it bent a little bit going in. To pull it out, you just pull a little bit. But going in, it just basically rides on this little top piece here and allows itself to bend out. Now, if yours become cracked or it breaks or something happens, you can use a regular sheet of Lexan. And I'd recommend some sort of sheet of plastic that's, when it breaks into small pieces. It doesn't break into big shards that can be sharp and hurt somebody. Probably won't happen, but if a machine gets knocked down by accident, which can happen, this breaking into something that was not going to hurt somebody is really best for you and your customers. Now, since this machine is going to be put on the right hand side, as you know, as you're looking at like right this way, it's going to be to the right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this extra piece that has this 25-cent piece and put it on the outside here. That's an aesthetic thing. You don't have to do that. But as you can see with the Lexan, it's kind of nice because it just goes straight in and out. You don't have to worry about bending it. You don't have to worry about doing anything to kind of pull it out special, but it is a little bit less secure because again, you very easily pull that out. So if you can, get these original ones because they're better and more secure. Otherwise, get a piece of plastic that breaks up into small pieces that aren't sharp and won't hurt somebody if they do break, and get them cut to size. But just take your original one that's not broken with you and they'll be able to cut it to the same size. And it's done. All you do now is grab it and load it. Alright, next up is the hopper and the coin collector. So the first part you want to install, because it just obviously it's easier, is to put this in. Again, I cleaned this off as best I could. That red is just leftover residue from where it got painted, and it's best I can do. But it goes in just like this. It just slides in and holds in like that. There's no tool, no screws, nothing. It just slides in, it's held in by friction. Your little door here where the gumball pops out, again, no tools, no screws, it just pops in. That's all that does. What holds everything together is your coin mechanism. Now, it slides in like so, and again, that's holding pretty much everything together from that point. There is usually a little screw on the back side that you can actually thumb wheel turn, and that will hold everything together. But once you have this on top, it does hold this secure. But again, you see, if you don't have it, it gets a little floppy. So we're going to fix that with a screw. So unfortunately, as I said, I don't have a screw in this one. I do have these. But as you can see, this just goes through here and will actually squeeze between the hopper body and the coin mechanism. And that's what holds that secure, along with putting the top back on. Now, the disadvantage I have here, because I've used a replacement button head screw, like you can see right here, I don't have a thumb wheel to turn. There's no knurl, there's nothing there, so I'll have to use a short Phillips head screw. Not a problem, I have that. So again, goes in. Just like that. And then you just tighten this up. And really, it doesn't need to be extremely tight. Usually about hand tight is enough, but if you need more, you can go in with a Phillips head. This one's a little long, but again, I don't need it that tight. It just needs to be tight enough to do that. And as long as you can pretty much pick up the machine like that, it doesn't need to be any tighter. Now there's one final part you need to do, and that is your actual coin catch here. Now this catches all your coins, so it doesn't necessarily need to be nice, pretty, and clean. Again, once I get my sandblast cabinet, I am going to kind of fix these when I get them. But as you can see, it just fits in here like that. The other part is you need a screw. These are typically self-threading screws. I'll have to see if I have one, because again, this one didn't have it. There's a lot of things missing on this machine that weren't missing on other machines. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. So yeah, it can be a very random draw when you get these machines used. That's why it's good to have multiple of them, because then you can salvage from other machines, which I'm going to have to do to find a replacement for that screw. The only unfortunate part is I need a shorter thread. Oh, that's not good. So, an important lesson to learn here is patience. I pretty much screwed myself up. I tried using what would have been the right screw, but unfortunately it bound when I was trying to pull it out again and broke. That was a failure of the screw, but it was more of a failure on me. So now I have to cut a new thread after grinding this down so I can drill it right and have the drill walk on me as I'm trying to do it. So important lesson is be patient, don't rush this stuff. So right now all I'm doing is just tapping a new thread here for a new screw. We'll go up the next size up. And whenever you have to tap a screw like this, go in a little bit, then back out completely. That way you clear the threads out. Especially on soft metal like this. Let it go through. Let it cut its new thread. And then back off again. And I've tapped it for a 1224. It's a type of machine head screw. Double check my threads here. that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. We'll be doing more restorations, customizations, and some really cool projects related around these gumball machines. You'll be surprised what all goes into these. And I think you're going to have a really good time, even if you're not into vending, if you're not into anything related like candy or gumballs. Just the stuff we're going to be doing on this channel, you guys are going to enjoy. And we also offer this as a service, so if you're interested, we'll have a store coming soon just about selling these, selling custom versions, offering your services, and a whole lot more. So I've been Justin Banner of Vend Craft, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. So if you want more from Vend Craft, hit subscribe. Otherwise, check out these other videos.